Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. Everyone thought that I had married well. My husband was handsome and wealthy. My mother-in-law was gentle with people. And my sister-in-law had a gentle personality. I never needed to take care of the household affairs. However, what they didn't know was that my handsome and wealthy husband had several mistresses outside. The gentle mother-in-law at home would scold and beat me, and the gentle sister-in-law at home gave me the silent treatment. This time I got a chance to live my life again. As for this lousy family, whoever wants to marry into it can do so. Anyway, I won't. The handsome and wealthy husband? He's a criminal, and I'll send him to prison. The mother-in-law who was gentle with people? I'll make her so angry that she spits blood. The sister-in-law with a gentle personality? In the end, she'll have to reap what she has sown in this life. I'll just be myself. Men are just flirting outside. Can't you be more magnanimous? The person who said this was my husband, Henry. At this moment he was taking off his shirt with lipstick marks on it, casually throwing it onto my head, and then went to take a shower on his own. I had just walked out of the room with the clothes in my hands when I saw the mother-in-law, who was usually gentle with people, already waiting outside the door. She sneered and said, "You can't even give birth to a child, and you can't even hold on to your man. I really don't know why Henry married you." When my sister-in-law walked by and heard what her mother said, she gave me a disdainful look and then went out on her own. My mother-in-law slapped me in the face and said, "I'm talking to you. Where are you looking? You're just ill-bred. It's even a waste of energy to hit you." I lowered my head and didn't dare to retort. Actually, when I first married into this family, it wasn't like this. It's just that in the past 2 years, I hadn't been able to have a child. Later, it gradually developed into this situation. I tried to retort, but what followed was more scolding and beating. I also tried to get a divorce, but as a housewife right after graduation, I couldn't even afford 100 yuan, let alone rent a house and find a job outside. I went to my biological parents, but they didn't believe me at all. They threatened that if I dared to get a divorce, they would disown me as their daughter. My biological younger sister even said that if she had married Henry back then, the situation would definitely be different. After crying, I sat on the bed. Henry frowned and shouted loudly, "It's so annoying." At this time, the text message sound on Henry's mobile phone rang. Henry took a look at it and then picked up his clothes and went into the bathroom. After a while, Henry, who was neatly dressed, left directly without saying a word. Actually, I saw just now that the beginning of the text message Henry received was husband, and that phone number was very familiar to me. It was my biological younger sister's number, which I used to put in the first row of my contact list. I watched Henry. I was in a hurry to go out, and finally, following the choice in my mind, I decided to follow Henry. I watched Henry's car stop at the entrance of a newly built community. Then a woman ran out from the entrance of the community, hugged Henry, and kissed him. The distance was too far for me to hear the sound, but the bright lights outside the community allowed me to clearly see the woman's face. It was Diana, my biological younger sister from the same parents. After the passionate kiss, Diana took Henry's arm and walked into the community. Halfway through, Diana turned around and looked in my direction, then gave a provocative smile. That smile made me understand that Diana had deliberately let me see this scene. Perhaps Henry already knew that I was following him, but he just didn't care at all whether I would discover it or not. After seeing that smile, I opened the car door and wanted to rush over, but the 2 years of married life had made me cowardly. Beep. It was my mobile phone ringing. It was a message from Diana. "Sister, brother-in-law won't be going back tonight." "Ah!" I shouted loudly and slowly squatted down along the car door. Henry's vow of "I will love you for a lifetime" when he proposed to me still seemed like it was just yesterday. But in the blink of an eye, the person who once made that promise had already taken another person's hand and slept with another person. And I, who was clearly his legitimate wife, didn't even dare to go forward and question him. After crying, I could only stand up, pretend that nothing had happened, and sit in the car. In the car, I happened to look up and saw myself in the mirror. My hair was messy, my clothes had no texture at all, and my face looked sallow as I hadn't taken care of myself for a long time. I laughed at myself. I never expected that I would end up like this. I used to be an enviable existence. I was the top student in primary school and junior high school. In the college entrance examination, I entered the best school in the city as the top student in liberal arts. In college, I got first place in every subject. Upon graduating, my tutor hoped that I would stay and continue my studies. At the same time, I also passed the interviews of many well-known enterprises. Among them was the invitation from the world-famous Lynn Group. But as a lovesick fool, because of Henry's words, "I want you to stay by my side. I'll support you in the future," I chose Henry and chose to be Henry's wife. At home, I fired a shot at the beginning of my graduation, and now that bullet has hit the center of my forehead. The beep-beep sound of the mobile phone rang again. It was another message from Diana. This time it was an audio clip. "Brother Henry, tell me, who do you like the most?" You're the one I love the most. "What about my sister?" "At first, I was attracted by your sister's unattainable charm, but now she's just a frumpy woman. Even if she took off all her clothes, I wouldn't be interested in her at all. Your sister was just a bet with my roommates and I won that bet." There was also a line of words under this audio clip. "Brother Henry and I had already slept together on the day you got married. I couldn't bear to stay there any longer and started the car to leave. Bang! The car at night was driving so fast that it crashed into me all of a sudden, and the person didn't even get out of the car but just drove away directly. Everything in front of me began to blur slowly, and I completely lost consciousness. Here's 1,000,000 yuan, take it and leave my son alone." The person who was looking at me hotly in front of me was named Grace, who was my mother-in-law. No, she was my mother-in-law in my previous life. Sitting beside my mother-in-law and looking at me hotly was my biological younger sister, Diana. She was the biological younger sister who had slept with my husband on my wedding night. Yes, I was reincarnated, and the scene in front of me was exactly the one where my mother-in-law wanted to get rid of me with money in my previous life. I rejected this great opportunity, firmly believing that Henry would love me for a lifetime. Damn man, get out of here. This time I'm going to live my life in a different way. I pretended to push the check back and said, "Henry is the love of my life, you need to pay more." Diana looked at me in disbelief. In her eyes, I had always been a coward. Even when fists hit my face, I didn't dare to fight back. "Humph!" the old lady sneered. 2,000,000 yuan to sever the relationship between you and my son. I knew when to stop while I was ahead and said, "Okay, once the money is in place, I won't see your son for the rest of my life. Of course, I also hope you can make sure your son doesn't come to look for me." The old lady tore off a new check and threw it on the table. "Fine, I hope you keep your word. Don't be like some who take the money but still want the person." "Wait." I stopped the old lady who was getting up. "Please take this check back first." Before the old lady could get angry, I continued, "I accept bank transfers or cash. I also need to find a professional lawyer. And please write a gift contract too so that you won't ask for it back later." The old lady was very angry. "Do you think the Henry family can't afford these 2,000,000 yuan? The old lady in front of me was like a god of wealth, so I humbled myself and said, "Of course not. These 2,000,000 yuan is a small amount for you, but for me it's an astronomical figure. Of course I have to be careful." Fine. The old lady was even angrier. "Tomorrow, I'll bring a lawyer from the Henry family." Thank you. I stood up and handed the check back to the old lady. "Take care, sister. How could you treat me like this after accusing me?" Diana hurriedly chased after her, and I didn't bother with them because all my attention was on my mobile phone. "Miss Elizabeth, congratulations on passing the interview of the Lynn Group and officially becoming one of us. Please come to the company. I have to report next Monday. In my previous life, because of Henry's proposal, I gave up the opportunity to work for the Lynn Group and chose to be Henry's wife. The painful price made me understand that relying on others is unreliable. Only oneself is the most reliable. In this life, I will definitely not give up this excellent opportunity. Thank you. I will definitely report for duty on time next Monday." Just as I was about to turn off my mobile phone, I saw a friend I hadn't contacted for a long time. Rose. Rose and I were classmates in primary school, high school, and college. We also promised to be each other's bridesmaids. Since I started dating Henry, he had been constantly speaking ill of Rose in my ear. As time passed, my relationship with Rose gradually faded. In my previous life, a year after getting married, Henry told me when he was drunk that it was because Rose had seen him two-timing that he had been deliberately slandering her. Looking at Rose's contact information, I had never had the courage to press it. Sorry. The person behind me was playing with their mobile phone and bumped into me directly. When I looked down at my mobile phone again, I realized that I had already dialed Rose's number. There was no sound from the other side. I cautiously said, "Hello, Rose." After a long while, there was a sigh from the other side. "Forget it. Where are you? I'll come to find you." Hearing Rose's voice, I burst into tears. Perhaps a friend is someone who will still forgive you for your foolishness when you finally come to your senses and contact her again. The next day, I waited with my lawyer for 2 hours before the late-arriving god of wealth. My mother-in-law and Diana showed up. When it came to dealing with the god of wealth, I always had plenty of patience. When I saw the 2 million yuan transferred into my bank card and got the gift contract in my hands, I was in an even better mood. Before leaving, Diana lowered her voice and said to me, "Sister, Brother Henry will belong to me from now on. Don't you regret it?" Regret? There was nothing to regret. That was 2 million yuan. It was a huge sum of money that could allow me to buy a small house of my own in the city center. I looked at this huge sum of money that belonged to me with great delight. Jingle. The wind chimes at the door rang. It was Henry. "Mom, I can make my own decisions about my affairs. How could you insult Elizabeth with money?" Henry came up to me, took my hand and confronted his mother. Diana took out a recording pen with a wrong look on her face. "Brother Henry, it was sister who voluntarily gave you up. Henry is the love of my life. You need to pay more." My own voice came out from the recording pen in Diana's hand. "Elizabeth." Henry looked at me in disbelief. "How have you changed like this? You said that we would build a small family together and fight with my family to the end together." Ahem. I coughed lightly and took a step back. Vows, when we make them, we always mean them sincerely, but no one can guarantee that. Vows made will always be kept. Look, haven't I already gone back on my word? Elizabeth, Henry took my hand again. I will keep my vow with my whole life. Diana, who couldn't bear to watch this, pulled Henry's sleeve with a pitiful look. "Sister has already given you up. Can't you just look at others?" Miss Grace, who couldn't stand it anymore, directly dragged Henry away while saying to him, "Why would you marry a woman who gave you up for money? I'm telling you, as long as I'm here, Elizabeth will never be able to set foot in the Henry family's door for the rest of her life." The voice of Miss Grace scolding her son gradually faded away. "Aren't you going to chase after them?" I asked Diana, who was still standing there. Diana also dropped the pretense. "Elizabeth, since you've already given up Brother Henry, don't go looking for him again. Brother Henry will definitely fall in love with me, and I will definitely marry Brother Henry. Good luck." I really hoped that Diana could get what she wanted. The next day, I went to the Lin Group to start my job. The person who led me was Alice, the team leader of the first team in the copywriting department. After introducing the company, Alice directly asked me to sit at my desk. At the same time, I saw an acquaintance, Sophia. She was my sister-in-law who had a gentle personality towards others in my previous life. In my memories of my previous life, Sophia should know me by now. Everyone who appeared around Henry had to go through an investigation by the Henry family, and I was among them. The person in charge of the investigation had always been Sophia. For the Henry family, it was also when I was cleaning the house once after getting married that I saw the investigation file about me. But at that time, I still had illusions and thought that I could change the people in the Henry family. In my previous life, when I was reading that file, Sophia was standing outside the door of the room. She watched me finish reading the file before she sneered and said, "If a class lets you in, it means there's something desirable about you, Elizabeth. What do you think is the biggest advantage you have?" Sophia didn't give me a chance to answer, but 2 years later, I realized that the big advantage I had was that I could make Henry settle down a little bit. What the Henry family wanted was just my womb. At that time, I was still immersed in my memories when Director Evelyn asked me to go to her office. In Director Evelyn's office, my resume and report were placed on her desk. "Do you know President Lucas?" Director Evelyn got straight to the point. I didn't hide it either. President Lucas's younger brother used to be my boyfriend. "No wonder," Director Evelyn muttered and then took the file beside her and pushed it towards me. President Lucas hopes that you will follow up on this case. Then Director Evelyn looked at the time on her watch. Now go and report to Team Leader Alice. Hand in the preliminary plan to me together with the first team next Monday. Okay, since I had chosen this job, I didn't have the right to refuse. Team Leader Alice had never been friendly towards me. To her, I was just someone who got the job through connections. Team Leader Alice, I've already summarized the files you wanted, I said. Alice just said, H, and took my summary, casually throwing it on the table. Got it, thank you, she said. Looking at the things I had worked hard on for a week, being casually thrown into a corner of the table by Team Leader Alice. I could only hold back my temper and leave Team Leader Alice's workstation. On the first day of the second week, Director Evelyn held the first meeting based on the first version of the preliminary cooperation plan with the Henry Group. Halfway through I shouted, "Wrong!" when I saw the numbers on it. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me, including Director Evelyn's. I've been particularly sensitive to numbers since I was a child. I spent several sleepless nights completing the summary, and I remembered the numbers in it clearly. I pointed out the mistake. The amount of $3.5 million had been changed to $3.5 million. Director Evelyn took the plan on the table and saw that the amount was indeed $33.5 million. What's going on? Director Evelyn looked at Alice. Then Alice opened the summary report placed beside her and handed it to Director Evelyn. The amount on the summary report was $33.5 million. Director Evelyn closed the summary report forcefully. Stop the meeting. Alice Elizabeth, come to my office. When Director Evelyn walked out of the conference room, I followed. However, before I could walk out of the door of the conference room, I was bumped by Alice. The heel of my high heel broke, and I stumbled forward. Director Evelyn was right in front of me, and I directly fell onto her back. People passing by saw the scene, and they all started looking at me. After Director Evelyn helped me up, she took a look at my high heels and said, "If the shoes don't fit, just change them." Okay, thank you, Director. Alice was a bit reluctant that she didn't get to see me make a fool of myself, but under Director Evelyn's watchful eyes, she didn't dare to cause any more trouble. After coming to the office, Director Evelyn directly asked Alice, "Why did you change the total amount?" Alice, not knowing why she was suspected, still tried to argue. The amount Elizabeth gave me was $33.5 million. You've also seen the summary report. I did see it, Director Evelyn said, taking out another summary report from the drawer. I saw the summary report before you did, and the amount was $3.5 million. The reason why I didn't point out the mistake during the meeting was that I wanted to see who had changed the amount. It wasn't me, Director. I didn't do it. Without evidence, how could Alice admit that she had changed the amount? When necessary, you have to give your opponent a blow at this time. I said, Director, I printed this report in the company. There's still a copy of this report in the printing computer. You can retrieve it and check it. Also, Team Leader Alice, the company's computers have a memory function. Do I need to check the surveillance to see who changed the amount? Yes, all of this was within my plan. When Director Evelyn just assigned me the task, I knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch, so I always kept a backup for everything I did. Director Evelyn's public email address was public information in the company. I had sent the summarized backup to Director Evelyn in advance. Evelyn, the director hired by the LY Group with a high salary, couldn't tolerate any flaws. I overheard Sophia mention this information accidentally when I was wiping the handrail in my previous life. Sure enough, Director Evelyn said in a cold tone, Alice, you're fired. The difference between $3.5 million and $33.5 million is not just an extra zero. No company can tolerate such an error, especially in the world-famous LY Group. Director, I beg you not to fire me. I have a child who just fell at home, and my mother is also bedridden. I beg you, don't fire me. While saying that, Alice knelt down in front of Director Evelyn. However, this crying didn't arouse Director Evelyn's pity. Director Evelyn picked up the phone on the table and asked the security guards to come up. This meant to drive someone out. After everything was beyond redemption, Alice actually took out a utility knife from her pocket and rushed towards me. It's all your fault. It's all your fault, Elizabeth. Go to hell. Bang. There was a loud noise. It was the sound made when Director Evelyn picked up the chair from the floor and threw it at Alice. "Hello, police? Someone here is trying to kill." "Yes, it's the LY group." After hitting someone, Director Evelyn calmly took out her mobile phone and called the police. As one of the parties involved, of course, I went to the police station with the police. It was a month later that the police told me the reason why Alice had been targeting me all along. It turned out that Alice was Diana's best friend and also Henry's ex-girlfriend. Diana told Alice that it was because I seduced Henry that Henry broke up with her. I really didn't expect that Alice, who was more than 10 years older than Henry, would be Henry's ex-girlfriend and also Diana's best friend. I really couldn't understand this complicated interpersonal relationship. However, it didn't matter. I didn't want to have anything to do with them anymore in the future. Whether I knew it or not made no difference. Coincidentally, that very night I saw Henry downstairs in the rented house where I lived. Henry was obviously drunk. After seeing me, Henry rushed towards me. "Elizabeth, I miss you so much. Really miss you." While saying that, Henry started kissing me, and his hands were also trying to reach into my clothes. Men are much stronger than women physically. But there's one place that is the most vulnerable part of a man. Yes, I lifted my knee and pushed it hard against that most vulnerable part of the man. With a muffled groan, Henry covered that vulnerable part and fell to the ground. I patted my knee, called the security guards, and also dialed the police hotline. "Elizabeth, how dare you?" Henry, who had sobered up completely after I hit him, was furious. I was certain that Henry wasn't drunk at all. He just used the excuse of being drunk to try to force himself on me. With the help of the security guards, the police took Henry away as expected. In less than half an hour, Miss Grace came to the police station, and Diana was with her brother Henry. Diana called Henry in a soft and weak voice, and then when she lifted her hair, she showed me the fresh hickey on the right side of her neck. It seemed that Henry had just gotten out of Diana's bed. "So you're not satisfied with Diana's performance in bed?" I was still thinking about it. Miss Grace quickly walked towards me, raised her hand, and was about to slap me in the face. I grabbed Miss Grace's hand before she could hit me. In my previous life, Miss Grace was gentle with people outside. This time she was so angry that she directly tried to hit me in front of outsiders. It could be seen that Miss Grace was really furious, but in this life I was no longer that bullied daughter-in-law. Mom Sophia, who was my sister-in-law in my previous life, also rushed over in a hurry. "Elizabeth, an employee in the copywriting department of the LY Group, let's settle this privately. Otherwise, not to mention the LY Group, you won't even be able to stay in the city." Sophia was all about a fast pace. She had even prepared the letter of understanding already. "I won't. I only have one life. Who am I afraid of?" Seeing that I didn't listen, Sophia took out her mobile phone and dialed the number of Lin Hongxing from the Lin Group. As the call lasted longer, Sophia's frown grew deeper. "Okay, thanks anyway." After hanging up the phone, Sophia stared straight at me and said, "It seems that I underestimated you." This was the first time Sophia had really looked at me. In my previous life, she had just pretended that I didn't exist. Since Director Evelyn said so herself, I'll give Director Evelyn some face. Sophia walked past me and headed towards Miss Grace. I don't know what Sophia whispered to Miss Grace, but Miss Grace gave me a fierce glare and then left with Sophia. Diana also followed Miss Grace. When passing by me, she gave me a contemptuous look and said, "I thought you were so capable. Unexpectedly, you still rely on hooking up with rich guys. Heh sister, even if you pick up trash, you should pick better trash, right?" The Henry family was wealthy and powerful. I knew that Henry wouldn't be locked up for long. Sure enough, the next day Henry was bailed out. On the same day, Henry sent me a text message. "Elizabeth, you will definitely belong to me." Nonsense. In this life, I only belong to myself. At the same time, there was also an invitation and a text message from Diana. "Sister, I'm getting married to brother Henry in a month. Are you coming? A scumbag and a friend. I wish them a long and happy life." I didn't reply to the text messages, but I just blocked them all. How refreshing. Without Alice, my work gradually got on the right track, and I also made several good friends at work. Today, as usual, I turned off the lights and went home after work. Just as I walked out of the company's main entrance, someone covered my eyes, gave me an injection in my neck, and then dragged me aside. I struggled hard to break free and tried to call for help, but my consciousness had already started to fade. Slowly, in the end, my consciousness couldn't overcome the effect of the drug, and I completely passed out. When I woke up again, I was in a dark and small room. There were a lot of things piled up in the small room. The moonlight shone through the narrow gaps and fell on the ground beside me, giving this small room a little bit of light. I struggled to sit up and leaned against a bucket. "You're awake," the person beside me finally spoke up. "Well then, it seems we can have some fun." The voice was so familiar. It used to whisper sweet nothings in my ear every day. I turned my head and sure enough it was Henry. Henry didn't have any disguise and wasn't even afraid that I would see his face. Henry squatted down, touched my face with an obsessed look and said, "You would definitely belong to me. If you behave yourself, you'll get less hurt. Get lost." I kicked at Henry with my feet. Henry grasped my tied-up legs with one hand, and with the other hand, he had already started to unbuckle his belt. Henry's panting sound rang in my ear. Angry and desperate, I tried to bite Henry. He didn't even look at me but precisely pinched my face and then pressed my legs down with his right leg. "Give up. Tonight, I must have you." Henry had already unzipped his pants and was now using his hands to unbutton mine. "I'll call the police. I'll definitely send you to prison." The difference in strength between men and women was too great. I really couldn't break free. He laughed. "Go ahead. As long as you're not afraid that I'll post the video online, you can do whatever you want." After saying that, Henry started to kiss my neck. At this time, I just realized that there was a video camera placed in front of us. The red dot on the video camera indicated that it was recording this scene. "Baby, don't struggle. I'll be very gentle." Henry sped up and kissed me even more forcefully. "Ah!" Henry let out a miserable scream and backed away to one side. He looked at the blade in my hand and then at his injured arm. He walked forward and kicked me hard in the stomach. "What? People from the LY group can play around, but I can't? You understand for today, I'll make you beg me." After saying that, Henry took out a tube of something and forced it into my mouth. "You understand, drink it." Henry pinched me hard and forced me to drink the liquid in the tube. Then Henry took out a bag of white powder from his trouser pocket, poured it on the ground and started to snort it. "Ah, so good." Henry fell to the ground grinning. After a while, Henry didn't feel satisfied enough, so he asked, "A luxury car?" The next hot search topic was a beautiful girl from Tsinghua University being kept as a mistress. The picture was a photo of me at school. The onlookers rushed to join in, wanting to know more information. I knew it. With her shabby look, how could she afford the bag in her hand? Elizabeth liked rich second-generation kids when she was at school. Henry, the only young master of the Henry family, was her boyfriend. I also have their photos. The pictures below were of me and Henry. Being familiar with the rhythm of social media, I immediately understood what the Henry family was trying to do. The Henry family released these pictures first to get everyone talking. Then many insiders would release photos of me being kept as a mistress and of me and Henry being affectionate in the past. People's impression of me would suddenly turn into that of a gold digger, someone who could be bought with money. After that, the incident of Henry kidnapping me could be portrayed as something I had planned and directed with ulterior motives. As long as it was handled properly, the Henry family could wash away the dirt on themselves and then pour all the blame on me. On the very next day, while the discussion about the hot search topic of unspoken rules in the Henry group was getting more and more intense, my parents came forward, claiming that I had snatched my younger sister's boyfriend and publicly announced that they were cutting off all ties with me. I was looking at the absurd scene on my mobile phone when Rose walked in with her mobile phone in hand. Seeing that I was already watching the video, Rose said worriedly, "The Lin group has tried to issue a statement, but now all the public opinion is against you. It's very difficult to turn things around." By the way, it was only now that I learned that my good friend was the only daughter of the chairman of the Lin group. Rose took her mother's surname. I know I turned off my mobile phone screen. "Rose, I need to go out for a while." Rose frowned and didn't say anything. I knew she was worried about me, but I had to make this trip. Rose also knew what kind of person I was. I wouldn't wander around with my injured body unless it was something necessary. Rose finally compromised. "I'll ask the doctor first and then I'll take you out." There were already a lot of people gathered outside the hospital. They all wanted to get first-hand information to increase the traffic for their own social media platforms. After disguising myself, I walked through the special passage and came to the underground parking lot. Rose handed me the car keys. "If there's any danger, contact me immediately." "Thanks," I smiled. Rose also smiled a little. Out of here, driving Rose's new off-road vehicle, I arrived at a private restaurant. After opening the door of the private room, the person waiting for me inside was Sophia. Elizabeth's confusion could be heard from her tone. I sat down opposite Sophia, took out a photo from my bag, and placed it on the table. I pushed it towards her. "Sophia, long time no see." The photo was one that I had managed to take with great effort. It was a picture of Sophia and Ethan kissing. Ethan, the boss of the canoe company, was like a dark horse in the self-media industry, and had already snatched several big projects from the Henry Group. As for how I knew about the relationship between Ethan and Sophia, of course it was because Ethan was the one who hit me and fled in my previous life, and the person sitting in the passenger seat was Sophia. After being reincarnated, I had been secretly investigating Ethan and Sophia. Later, when I saw them kissing, I understood their relationship. Sophia looked at the photo on the table. "Tell me, what do you want?" "A chance to cooperate with you, Sophia." I made my purpose clear. Sophia sat up straight, but her eyes didn't look at me. I knew that Sophia still looked down on me. She came here entirely because of the photo in my hand. I took out a disc and pushed it in front of Sophia. I know that the Henry family has a deep-rooted preference for sons over daughters. No matter what achievements you make, they can only see Henry in their eyes. "Go on." Sophia was still not very interested. I sat back, leaving the disc in front of her. "I took pictures of Henry taking drugs and raping. I believe you'll be very interested." Sophia looked at the disc beside her hand. At that time, Henry had turned on the video camera, but the scenes of him taking drugs and raping hadn't been captured at all. Under Lucas's manipulation, the previous evidence had been overturned one by one. In the end, Henry was very likely to be acquitted. Sophia stared at me. "You've been well prepared." I had indeed made preparations. The buttons on my shirt were actually cameras, but what I hadn't expected was that Henry would go crazy and do things like kidnapping, raping, and taking drugs. But at this time, I could only shrug indifferently. "Of course, I'll testify in court about Henry's kidnapping, rape, and drug use, and you just need to give it a push to get what you want." Sophia didn't agree immediately but knocked on the tabletop. "There's no such thing as a free lunch. You can just tell me directly what I need to pay. Your younger brother. I want him to never be able to get out for the rest of his life." When it came to Henry, I wished I could kill him myself. Sophia was still looking at the tabletop and didn't say anything. Time passed bit by bit, and the only sound in the private room was Sophia knocking on the table. "Okay, pleasant cooperation." Sophia stood up and extended her hand. "Pleasant cooperation." I also extended my hand and shook Sophia's hand. Sophia was very quick. That very night, a well-known media outlet released a video with mosaics. Is it okay for the person who kidnapped, raped, and took drugs to be okay while the innocent victim is in trouble? Are we being deceived? Or is someone using us as firewood? One after another, hot search topics about Henry rushed to the top an hour later. However, the hot search topics were suppressed. This aroused the public's anger. People flooded into the topic discussion, and also started to boost the hot search on other platforms. When the public's anger reached its peak, I released my medical examination report, proving that I was covered in injuries and had already been hospitalized. When everyone started to sympathize with me, I released the timeline of my acquaintance with Henry. It was confirmed that when I got to know Henry, Diana was still a minor and was even studying in another city. There were photos on each timeline which were all solid evidence. The rumor that I had snatched my younger sister's boyfriend collapsed on its own. At the same time, my parents and neighbors also came forward to explain that my parents had been treating me badly since I was a child. I had to do laundry and cook at a young age, and I even had to clean the whole small house by myself. As they were talking, the neighbors' eyes turned red. When the self-media was trending in a good direction, then everyone would come out to help. Even my primary school classmates released photos of me that were taken accidentally when I was a child. In the photos, I was wearing a tattered short-sleeved shirt, carrying a shabby and dirty small school bag, and walking towards the school. There were even several holes in my pants. Judging from the background of the photos, other people had already started wearing autumn clothes while I was still in short sleeves. One thing after another was exposed, and people's emotions had reached their peak. However, there was still no movement in Henry's case. Conspiracy theories on the internet also began to increase gradually. Under this kind of pressure, the Public Security Bureau accelerated the trial process of Henry's case. When investigating Henry's drug use case, the police also discovered Henry's drug trafficking activities. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Henry was sentenced to death, and his appeal was rejected. Our country has always had a zero-tolerance attitude towards drugs, and Henry had touched the bottom line. At the same time, the stocks of the Henry Group plummeted, and many of its products were exposed to have defects. For a while, everyone turned against the Henry Group. Even so, FIA was involved. After hearing the news, Henry's mother was so angry that she spat blood and was still hospitalized. I looked at the newly risen sun and smiled. Come on. It was the passers-by who knew I was being discharged, shouting to me, "Come here." It was my best friend reaching out to help me get into the car. Actually, the world is beautiful as long as you dare to break free.